Welcome to our channel. We'd be grateful if you'd like and subscribe. This story is about a chance encounter that defies logic and wealth. A young girl living on society's edges offers a millionaire a miracle for his paralyzed son. In a forgotten Chicago alley, her words spark hope where science failed, leading to a moment that reshapes their lives. It's a tale of belief, healing, and the quiet power of those who see beyond the broken. "Sir, I know how to make your son walk again," the black beggar girl said to the millionaire. Jonathan Pierce had passed through the alley off State Street countless times, but never like this. Never with the dull hum of wheelchair tires replacing the tap of sneakers. Never with a silence so heavy it made the city's noise feel distant. His son, Ethan, 11, sat quietly in the chair, wrapped in a faded Chicago Cubs blanket, sandy hair tousled, eyes fixed on sidewalk cracks, as if counting them gave him purpose. He hadn't stood in over 18 months. Jonathan, once dubbed by Forbes as the man who reshaped Chicago, had built a real estate empire from crumbling buildings and boarded-up blocks, turning decay into billion-dollar views. But all his money, all his influence couldn't restore the legs his son lost in a skiing accident in Aspen. Doctors were blunt. T6 vertebral fracture with spinal cord injury, permanent damage. Those words looped in Jonathan's mind like a scratched record, mocking him with every tick of the clock. Hope, once his fuel, had become his tormentor. Then he heard her voice. "Sir," the girl said again, clearer now. "I know how to make your son walk again." Jonathan turned, gripping the chair's handles tighter, expecting an adult hustler peddling miracle cures or New Age scams. Instead, a small girl stepped from behind a dented dumpster, maybe 8 years old. Dark skin, big brown eyes, carrying a weight beyond her years. Her hoodie was torn at the elbow, jeans streaked with city grime, shoes held together with duct tape, but her posture was straight, voice steady. "Excuse me?" Jonathan asked, irritation and disbelief in his tone. "I said I can help your son," she repeated. "My name's Amara. I live at the shelter on Wells. I saw you two yesterday. He looked sad." Ethan glanced at her, not with fear or pity, but curiosity, the first spark of interest Jonathan had seen in days. "You were watching us?" Jonathan asked. "Just a little," she said, shifting her weight. "I sit on the corner most days. Lots of people pass. But you stopped, picked up his glove when he dropped it. You didn't just run off. I thought you might listen." Jonathan frowned, glancing at Ethan, who still watched the girl. "My son's condition isn't sadness, young lady. It's neurological. His spine didn't forget. It's disconnected." Amara cut in softly. "That's what my grandma said. Sometimes the body doesn't stop because it's broken. It stops because the heart's tired." Jonathan was about to dismiss her when Ethan's quiet voice broke through. "Dad, maybe we just go see." He hadn't asked for anything in weeks. No TV, no dessert, no bedtime stories. But now he was asking to follow a barefoot girl from an alley. Jonathan closed his eyes, exhaling long and hard. "If anything feels off," he told Ethan, "we leave." "Deal," Ethan nodded, the corners of his mouth twitching, not quite a smile, but close. "Follow me," Amara said, already turning. They wove through the city's underbelly, away from Michigan Avenue into forgotten streets where buildings leaned inward, the air thick with rust and yesterday's rain. Jonathan hesitated at every turn, guiding Ethan's chair over uneven sidewalks, dodging broken glass and scattered bricks. But something kept him moving. Maybe Amara's calm, maybe Ethan's quiet hope, or maybe he was too worn to fight anymore. They reached a narrow courtyard behind dilapidated brownstones. A wooden door, half hidden by ivy and faded graffiti, creaked open without a knock. Inside, a room glowed with sunlight streaming through ceiling gaps, smelling faintly of lemon balm and old books. On a worn rug stood a woman, silver hair twisted into a grapefruit-sized bun, skin as dark as Amara's, etched with age. "Wondered when you'd bring him," she said to Amara, her voice smooth as river stones. Jonathan tensed. "How did you know?" She looked at him gently. "I don't know the future, sir, but I know pain, and I know when it walks through my door." Ethan leaned forward, eyes wide. "Who are you?" The woman smiled, kneeling by his chair. "Just someone who listens." "May I touch your knees?" Ethan looked at his father. Jonathan's heart pounded with doubt, and a flicker of something else, fear, maybe, or hope. He nodded slowly. The woman placed her hands on Ethan's knees, her fingers rough, warm, sure. Her eyes closed, a soft chant spilling from her lips, a melody old as the wind, gentle as forgotten bedtime tales. Ethan twitched slightly. "I felt something," he whispered. "Like electricity, but soft." Jonathan leaned forward, gripping the armrest. "What do you mean, felt?" The woman opened her eyes. "His body remembers more than it thinks." "This isn't medical science," Jonathan said. "No," she agreed. "But science doesn't sit with a boy who thinks he's invisible." She turned to Ethan. "Want to try standing?" Ethan swallowed, then nodded. She guided him gently. His legs trembled. Hands shook. Jonathan lunged forward, but the woman stopped him with a raised hand. Ethan's left leg shifted, then his right. He stood. He stood. Jonathan dropped to his knees, eyes burning. "Eth," he whispered. "Oh, God, Eth." Ethan stood, trembling, eyes wide, hands dangling as if the air itself held him. His legs, weak from disuse, quivered under his weight, but he stayed upright. Jonathan's breath caught, the world fading, broken windows, drafty ceiling, ancient rug, all dissolved in the miracle unfolding inches away. Ethan looked at his father, a smirk tugging at his mouth, full of uncertainty and disbelief. Jonathan rushed forward, but didn't catch him, didn't want to. He knelt, arms outstretched, but not touching, a witness afraid his presence might break the spell. Ethan took a step, quiet, more shuffle than stride, but his own. He took another, then his knees buckled, and he started to fall. This time, Jonathan caught him, pulling him close, face buried in Ethan's hair as the boy shook with sobs. "I felt it, Dad," he whispered. "I felt my legs. I really felt them." Jonathan could only nod, his voice caught between a cry and a prayer. Amara stood silently, small hands tucked into her hoodie's oversized sleeves, eyes calm, not smug, not triumphant, just still. The old woman stepped back. hands clasped, her face serene, as if she'd seen this scene countless times. Jonathan turned to her, tears streaming. "I need to know," he said softly. "How did you do this?" Her gaze didn't waver. "Not much to know. The body follows the heart more than we admit. When the spirit shuts down, the limbs follow. Your son stopped believing. But today, for the first time in a long time, he trusted what he couldn't see." "That's not how healing works," Jonathan said, but the words lacked conviction. "No," she replied gently. "Tell me then, how do you explain what just happened?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. Instead, he turned to Amara. "Who are you, really?" She looked down, brushing a curl from her cheek. "Just a girl who listened to stories. My grandma raised me when no one else would. She said people don't always need fixing. Sometimes they just need reminding they're not broken." She stepped forward, kneeling by Ethan. "I was born with a twisted foot. Kids laughed. Adults stared. I couldn't run, couldn't play. One day, Grandma sat me on this rug, put her hand on my ankle, and hummed like she did today. She didn't ask me to believe, didn't say she could heal me. She just said, 'Stand if you can.' And I did." Ethan looked at her, eyes wide. "And it worked?" Amara smiled. "I never limped again." Jonathan stood slowly, turning to the woman. "Where is she now? Your grandmother?" Amara's smile faded, her gaze dropping. "Gone almost a year. Stroke." Her voice cracked, the only sign of her grief. "They put me in foster care after. I ran away in 3 days. No one believed her stories. Called her a fake, a con. Said I made it all up." "So you live on the street?" Jonathan asked quietly. Amara nodded. "Church shelter most nights, sometimes the back of a bakery near Southport. But I'm okay. Sometimes I help people, like she did." "You shouldn't live like that," Jonathan said. "You're just a kid." "Lots of us are just kids," Amara replied. "The streets don't care. The world forgets us, unless we make it impossible to ignore." Jonathan looked at Ethan, propped in his arms, fingers twitching with cautious excitement. "I want to help you," he told Amara. "I have resources, people. I can get you a home, education, safety." Amara shook her head. "Thank you, but this is where I'm needed. On the corners no one looks at, with people who think hope belongs to someone else. Grandma always said that's where healing starts." Jonathan felt torn, the weight of privilege pressing against the raw truth of Amara's words. She didn't want rescue. She wanted purpose. And somehow, she'd already found it. Still, he pulled a crisp, embossed business card from his coat. "If you ever change your mind," he said, handing it to her, "or need any help, call this number. My assistant answers day or night." Amara took it carefully, studying it like a relic, then folded it into her coat's small inner pocket. "Thank you," she said. Ethan reached out, grabbing her hand. "Will I see you again?" Amara smiled. "If you ever stop believing, I'll probably be around." Ethan grinned, hugging her, the first embrace she'd had in a year. She stood slowly, tugging a loose thread on her sleeve. "You should go," the old woman said, her tone warm but firm. "The boy took his first step. Now he's got to walk his path." Jonathan nodded, pushing the wheelchair. though Ethan insisted on taking a few steps, leaning on the armrests for balance. On the way home, he barely spoke, but his eyes glowed with a fire Jonathan hadn't seen since the accident. That night, as Chicago's skyline gleamed like a promise outside their penthouse window, Jonathan sat by Ethan's bed. "I can't explain it," he whispered, watching Ethan drift to sleep. "But I'll never forget it." He turned the business card in his hand, wondering what would become of Amara, the old woman, and that warm room in the alley. Somewhere across the city, Amara sat beside a girl no older than 6, mute since her mother left 3 months ago. Amara asked no questions, offered no solutions, just held her hand and sang her grandmother's melody. Because as she'd learned, healing didn't always start with answers. Sometimes it began with presence, silence, staying. Weeks passed, then 2. Late October brought Chicago's chill, leaves scattering like forgotten letters. Jonathan noticed how differently the wind sounded when it didn't carry fear. His mornings no longer started with the wheelchair's mechanical hiss, but with Ethan's cautious footsteps on hardwood. Each day, the boy walked farther, first across the living room, then down the hall, then from the elevator to the sidewalk and back, not perfectly, not without stumbles, but with growing confidence. His therapists, long accustomed to polite hopelessness, now watched in disbelief as Ethan described sensations in his calves, tingling in his thighs, a strange sense of return. Jonathan tried explaining what happened at Children's Hospital in Lincoln Park, in a room full of specialists. Their reactions mixed: curiosity, skepticism, and thinly veiled dismissal. "Psychosomatic response," one said. "Possibly reactivation of dormant motor function triggered by trauma-induced stimulation," another added. "No one can explain why initial movement returned not from clinical intervention, but from a stranger's touch and a child's belief." Jonathan stopped justifying it. Some things, he decided, just are. What mattered wasn't how Ethan walked again, but that he did. One crisp afternoon, Jonathan returned early from a board meeting, finding Ethan in the living room, doing slow squats with a resistance band, cheeks flushed with effort. "Guess what?" Ethan said, grinning. "Coach Davis says I might try out for the junior basketball team in spring. Says I've got muscle memory." Jonathan smiled, but his mind was elsewhere, on Amara, the tiny figure in worn shoes with an old sole, whose words cracked open a door no doctor could. He realized he couldn't let her vanish into the city's folds like smoke on the wind. That evening, he called the number on the card he'd given her. A week passed. No response. He tried shelters, soup kitchens, churches on the south side, walked streets he hadn't in years, asked questions he once thought beneath him. No one knew where she'd gone. Some remembered a girl in a hoodie with kind eyes. Others said she hummed songs that hushed even the angriest kids, but no one had seen her in days. "She comes and goes," a youth center volunteer on Ashland told him, "like a shadow with a heart. Helps people, then vanishes." Jonathan left his number, his name, a promise to help. Still, silence. Then one afternoon, driving past boarded-up storefronts near Roosevelt and Loomis, he saw a girl on the curb, back against a wall, cradling a younger boy. The boy's face was pale, lips trembling, right arm clutched like it was injured. Amara. Jonathan stopped so abruptly the tires squealed. He stepped out slowly, careful not to startle them. Amara, he said softly. She looked up, startled, then smiled faintly. You found me. I've been looking, Jonathan said. Couldn't stop thinking about you. Amara helped the boy adjust his grip on her arm, then stood. This is Jaden. Fell off a dumpster yesterday. Might be a sprain. I'm watching him. Jonathan glanced around. No adults. No phones. No help. You can't keep doing this on the streets, he said. Let me help, please. Amara shook her head. This is where people hurt. It's where Grandma helped. It's where I'm supposed to be. But it's not safe, Jonathan pressed. You're a kid. You think I don't want warm beds or food that doesn't come from market scraps? She said gently. I do. But the people I help have no one. They trust me because I'm one of them. They don't see a charity worker. They see a kid who knows what it's like to go to bed hungry, to be invisible. Jonathan sighed, defeated, but deeply moved. Let me at least give you options. A safe place for when it's too cold. I'm not asking you to change your mission. Just don't forget yourself. Amara looked at Jaden, then Jonathan, nodding slowly. Okay. A number, maybe a key to a safe place. That's fair. Jonathan handed her a folded envelope. There's a debit card, unlimited balance, yours, no questions asked. And a key to an apartment on the north side, fully stocked just in case. Amara didn't thank him, not out of rudeness, but because she knew what real help looked like. Not pity, not charity dressed as mercy, but quiet, steady presence. You know, she said after a moment, Grandma said the city's heart beats loudest in its quietest places. I think that's what you heard that day. Not me, just the heart. Jonathan smiled, throat tight. You remind me of who I was before I got lost in steel and numbers. Amara laughed softly. Well, maybe you found your way back. They stood there, an unlikely pair, millionaire and beggar girl, bound by something no ledger could tally. Will I see you again? Jonathan asked. Amara tilted her head. Maybe not how you expect, but if someone near you forgets how to believe, I'll probably be around. That evening, Ethan stood on his school's fall concert stage, no wheelchair, no braces, in a navy blazer and khakis, steps slow but chin high. When the principal asked where he found strength, he looked at his father, then the crowd. A girl who believed I could, he said simply. 5 miles away, in an alley, Amara sat beside an old woman named Teresa, silent since her husband died last winter. Amara asked no questions, just hummed a melody older than memory, letting silence do what words often couldn't. Because healing, she'd learned, wasn't always about fixing, it was about presence. The stubborn act of sitting with pain and saying, I see you, I'm not leaving. Jonathan never found her again, not in person, but sometimes passing an alley or pausing by a shelter, he heard a hum, felt a warmth he couldn't explain. Ethan would stop, look around, and smile, and they both knew, somewhere, the city's quietest heart still beat, helping, watching, refusing to leave.